Take 23. Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show. 101 player Q&A with Mippins. I'm joined by Lex. Say hello, Lex.
Hello, people.
Say hello, Josh.
Hey, guys.
And say hello, Shy, who's in the background to catch all your questions you might have later on for Mippins as we go through this interview. And then we have Mippins with us. Say hello.
Hey guys, thank you for having me here.
You're more than welcome. So, as you guys know, it's a different day and a different start time for us. This is what you can expect in the future for us streaming on a Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, so that we can catch more of you guys and engage with you. So, do you want to go and start it off, Lex?
Sure thing. So, please tell us just a little bit about your gaming background.
Yeah, so that's actually quite a history. So I actually started out Diablo 2 dial-up days. It was pretty awesome. Moved therein into EverQuest, actually. The original EverQuest, that was basically where myself and my two brothers, that game, I've got 3 brothers, 2 sisters, so I come from a family of 6 kids. And 3 of us game hardcore a lot of the time. Started
Your folks
out in
have television or not?
We did have television, yeah. They did not know anything about computers. My grandpa was actually the one that taught me and got me introduced into computers, Diablo 2, EverQuest. That came from my grandfather and learning games originally. Then from there, essentially, I played pretty much everything under the sun. Played competitive Counter-Strike in the 1.6 era for a little while. Played competitive Dota 2 for a little while as well. Touched CSGO briefly, and then lately it's been a lot of PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds while I'm waiting for Pantheon to come out.
Good stuff. Now here's a question though: with having so many siblings, how many fights were there over whatever gaming console or system that you currently have?
So we probably quite a few. At some point, we learned that we needed a computer for each of us. So since we're primarily PC gamers, the console fights never really happened. It was all over PCs. But at one point when I was playing Counter-Strike competitively, it got to a point where they wanted me to leave the house or engage with them a little bit more. So they ended up smoke bombing me one year around July 4th. When we had some fireworks laying around, so they smoke bomb where I played Counter-Strike. They even said smoke out and then ran away laughing hysterically.
So I've got a follow-up question. So since everybody had their own PC, can we presume that basically the person that got the new one passed down the older one to the next sibling?
Oh yes, definitely. Typically, I had the best one. Obviously, it went in age, followed by my next brother and my next brother. Now, that varied a little bit when we got jobs and everything, because I would get the new one, and then my one brother would run his for Ancient till it was basically running. So my pass down would go skip my middle brother and go all the way down to the youngest there. But for the most part, yeah, it was kind of a hand-me-down process.
Nice. Actually sounds like quite an ordeal growing up.
It was great.
So,
I wanted to be an only child, but I wouldn't trade any of them for anything. I love my family. So
you realize you're on record saying that now.
Yeah, you know.
They know that.
So what actually triggered your interest in Pantheon?
So the fact that Vanguard stopped being a thing, and I needed another game. So there was a game kicking around on Kickstarter. I believe it was called Embers of Karis, which interested me. It sounded similar to what Pantheon wanted to do, like an open world, the actual exploring world. Groups actually matter. Community actually matters once again. Back to the EverQuest games where we could sit in a place with a bard pooling or bard kiting. I forget what the zone's called now. It's been so long in EQ. But it's one of those things where I miss the community, the sense of groups matter. I can't solo everything. Playing WoW, playing any of the other MMOs out there, Rift. What's the latest one that just came? Destiny 2, which isn't really an MMO, but claims it sort of is. Like, all of them are all solo content. None of it's group. I play games because I enjoy playing with other people. My siblings included in that other people. So Pantheon bringing that back out. Yeah, sometimes my one brother rages quite a bit. So depending on the game, that gets cut short. But yeah, it's one of those things. The active community, the fact that groups and roles matter. You can't be whatever you want and you can just do everything. That's what brought me back to Pantheon, or has me super interested in Pantheon.
Yeah. So a follow-up question on that, though. I mean, so have you got your brothers interested in the game as well?
Oh yeah, we're all eagerly awaiting. We've got friends. We've been like, you got to watch this. You got to watch this, and I've even watched some of the Co-Carnage streams at work, and I got some colleagues when I was in the office actually watching too. So I've been spreading the love essentially and spreading the word.
Nice.
Awesome.
This one's super hype.
Excellent. So what is the most exciting thing for you in Pantheon currently?
So the most exciting thing in Pantheon for me is that return to like grouping. Dungeons matter as far as like your camps, what mobs you can pull, learning zones matters, exploring the world, like all of that. And that's like a couple different things. Basically, I'm just super excited about the game, if you want to take it that way, because there's so many games that do certain things really well. I see Final Fantasy in chat. Final Fantasy 14, I believe, is the online version. It's got a great storyline, but once you run through your storyline, like, it doesn't hold me. World of Warcraft had that I never actually got into, but it was a lot of like very quick leveling to get to endgame, to run raids. Like it didn't draw me in either. Warhammer Online actually had a lot of cool ideas. I loved their PvP. Their balancing needed some work, as well as the open world concept of I forget what it's called, but like the city sieges that were supposed to be implemented, they were kind of broken. So like, while it was a fun game for a little while, it didn't have longevity to it.
Unfortunately.
Yep.
And actually RF Online, and Darkfall Online, some of the smaller games, they had awesome PvP and race versus race stuff, but they, after a certain while, they got old because there wasn't new content. There wasn't that next challenge.
Yeah, exactly. So, what class and race are you likely to pick, and why?
The verdict is still honestly out on this one. Based on the current class, race, like stuff on Pantheon's website, like I usually lean towards a gnome, or their halflings look really cool. So more than likely I will be going that route. However, they've also introduced some really cool classes like races like Arkai, or however you say it, and Scar. So like, it is a possibility I will veer away from my norm, which is more the shorter races, except Dwarf. I will get to, I believe, another question later that's the least favorite.
That's actually
it with Dwarf.
That's actually the next one up. So, so what is your least favorite race and your least favorite class?
So I haven't even touched classes yet. We'll get back to that in a moment. But literally dwarfs. Something about them I just never like. They're always weird and stunty and disproportionate, and their females have beards, and like dwarfs I can't do. I just can't do. They are my least favorite race ever. Any game I've ever played, dwarfs by far the least favorite. I would say ogres would come second.
Just to interrupt for a moment, I'm getting some reports that our guest volume is just a little bit low.
It's fine on my end, though.
Yeah, as I say, it's booming in my ears, so I don't know. Maybe OBS level?
That's fine as well.
Okay.
Because you're all going through the same OBS audio output, so and it's spiking normal.
Okay.
Yeah, some people are saying sounds fine. Other people are saying it's a little low. So maybe those that are low turn up your volume or restart the stream.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're having problems with audio, one of the best things to do with Twitch is just refresh.
Yeah.
We can continue now.
I believe I owe you guys my favorite classes, or the class that I'm expecting to play.
They're the least favorite.
This is where the verdict is still really out, because I tend to play a DPS class. Something that can either CC and blow things up, or just blow things up, or stab things a whole lot. So I do tend to go towards the wizard or the rogue route. My first class in EverQuest was the magician, so I may go the summoner route. It's kind of up in the air. I'd like to wait till we get a little further on before I make the hard decision. But what will happen is, I mentioned my two brothers. We're already forming a static group for the most part. So based on what role needs to be, most likely it's a DPS role, just because my one brother's always a healer. The other one is usually a tank. So it's one of those things that my DPS fits in really nicely. So we'll see, but probably I think right now I'm leaning rogue or wizard, and now I always toy with ranger, so that's a possibility.
So now we know what you're likely to play. What's your least favorite?
My least favorite class. So this is the thing about like EverQuest and any of these games where classes matter, roles matter. I tend not to have a super least favorite, like one that I will never ever play, because they're always fun and flavorful to play. And I'm interested to actually see what Direlord does, because it sounds pretty awesome. But I obviously, until it's implemented and everything, I won't know what it does. I would say if I had to pick one least favorite, it would be the warrior, just because it's the plainest in theory of all of them, because it's the melee attack tank thing.
Slap him in the face, insult your mother, stand there and get beat on.
So
it's simple from a concept, so I guess that would be my least favorite.
So on that note, your least favorite race and your least favorite class, if you had to choose between the two, which one would you pick and why?
I would take the class, the warrior. I would play a warrior long before I play a dwarf. Dwarfs are like my blacklisted race. Never ever a thing.
It's almost like you're in a tavern after adventuring. One got drunk and touched you somewhere. And you're like, no, away from me.
Exactly.
I don't have, like, if I was in a tavern having a drink and the dwarf wanted to have a drink, I'm okay with that. He can touch me even if he bumps into me. Like, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, but he has to touch you with a Scottish accent as well.
However, me being one, never gonna happen. Ever gonna happen. It's just not a thing.
That's kind of the same with me and halflings. I think they look cool. I like how they're being changed, but I'd rather chop off my foot with a rusty spoon than to play one.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's me and dwarfs, yes.
Yeah.
And humans as well.
So what mechanics are you looking forward to?
So the mechanics, the environment system is very, very cool. I would have to say the ability to attune yourself, and they showed some of it on some of the streams, like the ice bridge, where if you're not attuned to cold, you like freeze. There was the one environment, I think the vacuum, I think is what they called it, or something like that.
Anaerobic, I think it was called.
It was what? Sorry?
I think it was anaerobic.
Anaerobic, yeah. So it's one of those things where it drains the health and mana. That system is very awesome. I'm very excited to see that implemented and mess around with it, because it just makes dungeoning that much more like a dungeon. It's a challenge. You have to go in prepared. You can't just be like, let's queue up with this auto queue, and then we'll just see what dungeon happens, and then we'll face roll across the keyboard and we'll be done it. The challenge, that is one of those things super excited about. And then the mana system, which I've only heard bits and pieces about. I'm really excited to see what they do there, and that may sway which class I actually play, because if I could be a wizard and play with the mana system, then I probably will blow things up.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'm sure a lot of the Pantheon fans out there, they're just kind of like foaming at the mouth just to get just a little bit more details.
Yeah, I mean that's precisely it. I'm so excited moving once they're done with their pre-alpha. I think the newsletter said they're in pre-alpha right now. Once they're done with that and they move on into the streamer alpha and everything, and I am a streamer myself, so I've tried to sign up for that. So I'm really excited to see what they do with the community as well as get the game moving forward there.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So now, if you could play Pantheon, like right now, completely unrestricted,
yes,
what would you do, and where would you go?
So completely unrestricted, meaning it's a launch game.
It's a launch game. You can play it right now.
I would not be on this show. No offense. I would be in
you guys can go straight to.
I would probably be grinding somewhere with my two brothers. We'd be in a static group in a location, pulling mobs, and chilling, because that's a lot of what we did. There was a lot of times where we'd go sit in one of the planes. I think it was Plane of Time in EverQuest. My brother on his shaman. I ended up with an enchanter at some point, and then my other brother with his Shadow Knight, and we would just pool a whole bunch. If I had to go anywhere in Pantheon, I'd probably be in the market, the bazaar, listening to my brother saying which traders are stupid and have their prices the wrong way and which items to buy, and then try to undercut the market probably.
There you go.
Very nice. So tell us about one of your most standout or funniest moments in the previous MMO experience so far.
Oh my goodness. That would be one of the hardest questions, but there was so I played this
well, that was
MMO.
pretty funny early on with the smoke bombs, so you got it on top there.
That,
however, wasn't an MMO.
You sure about that?
That was, I mean, Counter-Strike CS 1.6 was not an MMO, but it's a massive game for player base, but not an MMO. The one time that does come to mind, I was playing a game called Rising Force Online, or RF Online. I don't know if any of you actually understand it, but there's three races. There's the Bolado, the Accretion, and then the elf people that I forget their names off the top of my head. Somebody could probably fill it in. But it's a race war, twice a day, I think it was. And I got nominated and elected as a race leader council. So I was able to talk to everybody in the race. And I actually, because there were a couple key guilds, I think I had loaded up at one point in time 6 instances of TeamSpeak to try and coordinate and talk to them. So I had hotkeys. I was switching mute, unmute. That would probably be my, 6, Frogzor. My funniest moment is trying to play Juggle It. At one point, my character was not moving in game. It was standing still, so nobody was following me because they were all standing around, because I was trying to move between TeamSpeaks and make sure I had the right people doing the right things. So it was quite funny. I guess an actual moment in a game would be my brother, the one who typically plays a tank, has a tendency to go what we MMO players know, Leroy Jenkins, where we're like, you should do this. He's like, yeah, whatever. And then he just runs in and pulls as much as he can. And then it's literally me and my other brother trying to make sure we kill it all as fast enough and then keep him alive at the same point in time.
I wonder if that's a tank thing. I've done that a few times.
Yeah.
It might very well be a tank thing.
Whenever I feel like my group's not paying attention, I do something just ridiculous.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotta test it, right?
That's not just a tank thing, it's a healer thing as well.
So if you could pick 3 things to be implemented into Pantheon, what would they be and why?
3 things they haven't said they're going to be implementing, or 3 things they've...
things that you from the past of MMOs that you've loved, that you'd love to see in the game.
So at some point, I would love to see a housing system. I know it's always a hot topic, because it's how do you have to instance it? Do you actually have locally placed stuff? Now I tend to veer towards some sandbox MMOs, similar to like Mortal Online or Worm Online is one of them, where you get a little bit more building freedom. I'd love something that was a little bit more freeform, but it's one of those things that I don't like. That would be awesome if it made it into Pantheon. I don't expect it to, but that would be one thing that I would definitely would not be opposed to seeing in there. Another would be, and I don't know if they've talked about their banking system too much. I like localized, so you can do some sort of trade route system. So you can actually play the role of a trader, and actually make that what you do. You can get a reputation, because I mean, I'm a very honest and straightforward person. I don't try to cheat anyone. So like building that reputation and making a name for myself would be pretty awesome in that type of aspect.
Can we have your siblings quote that, please? That you are very honest.
Yeah, you can ask them.
He was honest, except for that one time.
No, I tell them when they're wrong.
Oh, I do that. That are people that aren't family.
So that was number 2. What's number 3?
That was number 2. Number 3, the one thing that needs to be at least implemented from my perspective, and I know they're going to do, is a good guild system where you could trade things through or put things in through a guild bank, some sort of thing that brings the community together even more, and typically it's guilds or clans, and make I would love to see like leaderboards within the game. So like there's a leaderboard for like top or guild with most top levels or highest levels, or something about mobs cleared, or weekly mobs cleared, who's cleared the hardest mobs, that type of stuff, just to bring the sense of community into the cities and into the game, so we don't need these other third-party sites for a lot of this stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean all the stuff is there to track statistics like that.
Exactly.
It's just a matter of utilizing.
Yep.
Definitely.
I'd like to see everything in the game as opposed to having to go out of the game. And then I'm gonna add a feature, virtual reality would be super epic.
Have you been watching our shows?
No, honestly, no.
You've answered 4 things that we've already talked about.
Although after 100 shows, if you don't touch on some of it,
that would be
then...
my list.
What kind of smelled together.
So, good answers. What is your number 1 thing from the game tenants that stand out, and why?
The game tenants. So this question, I need a little bit of clarity as far as what the developers are looking to do with the game.
Yep.
Number 1 thing is bringing back the more classic MMO. As I've reiterated a couple times throughout, I think, talking with you guys, the fact that making group and roles and community matter again, like that is absolutely 100% like my favorite thing, my utmost. What drew me to the game to begin with, obviously, and then obviously Brad McQuaid has not necessarily a great track record with like Vanguard and the game dying relatively quickly and being launched because Sony, but it's one of
everybody stumbles. Just matter of can you learn from it.
Exactly, and he's done amazing things. Vanguard, for all of its shortcomings, was an amazing game. I love that game. Like the graphics were exactly where they should have been at that time. The grouping mattered. Even the rating mattered. There were some instances where my brother on a Disciple and myself were almost the last people left standing in a raid as we killed the raid boss. Everybody else had died. So there's just all that nostalgic, like groups and roles matter. That tenant for me is absolutely the most important one.
Yeah. Nice. Perfect. So on that, what's the number 1 thing from the Pantheon difference that you want to see the most?
So the difference being like the things that haven't been done before, correct?
It's based on the website, the Pantheon difference, things that they're going to be that defines their game, defines their game.
It's almost like a pledge of what they're going to do different.
Yeah.
Don't worry. I'm on the show.
Where is this on their website?
I think it was down the footer somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the footer.
Don't feel bad, because I'm on the show, and if someone asked me that question, I'd be like, 42.
Oh, there it is. I see it. I got it. I found it.
Yeah.
Victory!
I think I've already mentioned this because they're both here on the differences. So I apparently knew what I was talking about without reading anything. Would be both the atmosphere climate system and the colored mana system. Both of those are on their differences. And it's one of those things that, like, those two items specifically have me most excited.
Okay. Cool.
And then the perception system, actually, I forgot that was a thing until I read the differences here real quick. That is going to be awesome because I don't like the question marks, the go here, go there. I like to be more engrossed in the world and being able to find things rather than being led here. The thing that I like absolutely irritates me about some of the I think they're considered the Korean MMOs or some of the converted MMOs from the East is the fact that they have a button that auto runs you between places and it will just basically automate the entire process. That's actually one of the things that Black Desert Online is a beautiful, beautiful game. Like, it's very pretty looking, but all the systems are in there for you to go AFK and essentially walk away and come back and have money to buy gear and upgrade your gear and do stuff. Like, once you're set up, you can AFK for days at a time, and it will play itself essentially.
Yeah, there's something to be said about playing something where you don't feel like Big Brother's holding your hand, treating you like you're special. Then like,
I don't want training wheels.
Fuzzy little bunny here. Have a nice purple sword.
Yeah, who wants training wheels anymore?
Yeah.
I know not to eat Tide Pods. So it's one of those things that I don't need training wheels. I'm not one of those people. Don't coddle me.
Exactly. I'm gonna take a break here for just a second. Just say, "Nomad, you suck." Inside joke, people. Cool. Okay. So now, if you could spend an entire day with anybody from Visionary Realms, who would it be and why?
So I think my go-to there would definitely be Brad. But the problem with that is he might be too high level for what I would want to ultimately achieve. I would like to, I think, go with their dungeon designers or world designers and sit down with them and pick their brains a little bit and sort of see if I can influence the design of any of the different areas of the game. So that way, like, I could go somewhere and be like, see that building? I told him to put that there. Or like, see the mobs there? Yeah, I gave him the fight, the idea behind the fight that they put into the world here. Something like that.
So Lex, before you say something, I just had a brain spark. Something else you need to put up for the player Q&As. That question you just asked, we have to have a running list as well. Who's the most sought out person from Visionary Realms?
Honestly, I don't think there's a point because we kind of know the answer.
Hey, you know, let's do this. Let's do this.
Okay.
Although I guess the other good one would be their PR guy or PR person and get a whole bunch of swag. That would be super awesome. That would be the other route to go with that one.
Now, when you were talking about, being able to influence someone to see something in a game that was basically there due to your influence, I mean, how crazy would it be to just see something like your game name or your online pen name chiseled in the side of a building, like on the foundation?
Awesome, dude.
I mean,
oh yeah, that would be.
Just completely lose it.
That would be pretty awesome. I must admit, I always liked the games and some of the stuff that does like there's a lot of very talented like hobbyists that do 3D modeling, rendering, artworks, stuff like that, and games do that for items to invent or introduce new raid drops, stuff like that. I don't personally hobbyist that way, but I think any game that does that is super awesome because they're bringing the community into the game that much more.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. So now when it comes to characters, Are you main for game or an altaholic?
I go in stages, to be honest. So there are some games where I'll make alts nonstop all the time, just to play with people. I don't care. Let's take, for example, World of Warcraft. I just sort of make whatever I feel like playing at the time, make it, play it a little bit, and move around. When I do that mode, the game doesn't have me engaged. When I go into the main all the way, I'm dedicated to that, and I may have 1 or 2 alts just to mess about when, say, it's a static group isn't happening. When I go into that mode, that means the game has me. That is the perfect game for me. I want to do that and play that game. Final Fantasy has a great system where you can switch jobs. And I say great system because it's really cool. It's not really an alt. You get to use the same character, which feels kind of cool. But ultimately, let's face it, I leveled up 1 job. It's one of those things that game, the story, I got through the story, and I did drop the game immediately thereafter, but it was an enjoyable story.
Mm.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I kind of did the same thing too.
Yeah. So, out of all the MMOs you played in the past, what is your guild preference?
That's a rough one. I've been in super hardcore guilds throughout the years versus like softcore ones that sort of are more social, or ones that I didn't know anybody in. I would definitely have to probably pick a couple of the Darkfall guilds. So Darkfall Online is a more sandbox PvP oriented full loot game out there that's now dead and relaunched or relaunching here at the end of the month. And it's one of those games where 2 of the guilds in there. So this is a game where super large scale fights happen, 100 and some people fighting at the same time for sieges, stuff like that. And it was a lot of fun. The magic system, combat system was great. So there'd be all of these guys, the standard Zerg, whether you have it in other MMOs where they lock down a zone like Horde in some of the WoW servers, stuff like that, or even EverQuest, where you'd see like an extra 30 people outside of a raid mob, so they could rotate people in as they tried it for it in the early EQ days, or people had to log out. Like, those type of guilds are fun, but in this game, Darkfall, there were 2 guilds. One was Innocent because so there were 2 servers. One was EU at one point, and one was NA. So there was Innocent, and then Cycles Nukes IRL. I'd give a shout out to both of them. Those are the 2 guilds. We basically rolled with maybe 3 to 7 people at most in a game where group sizes were 10. People ran around with 15 to 20. Basically, we always fought outnumbered. It was just a lot of time because then it was all pure skill based, and one of those things where like that was enjoyable. It was a smaller group. I knew everybody. We could count on each other. Like it was pretty cool.
Nice. So let's look at the interests outside of gaming that you have. Tell us about it.
So I grew up playing soccer or football, depending on where you're from. It's one of those things that absolutely soccer would be one of those primary things I do outside. I'm getting married in October, so I guess one of my other interests is my fiance and our dogs. But awesome. Paintball would be the other one. So basically soccer and paintball.
So
combine the 2.
Soccer, paintball.
There you go.
So what's your favorite soccer team?
Chelsea, actually.
Oh! God, get out! Oh!
This is where you get the beep beep beep.
As long as it's not Man U, it doesn't. That you're fine by me.
Oh yeah, same.
We're the only team so far that have managed to beat a City this. Hint.
So I grew up in the States, so European football is definitely better than the U.S. football. I'm still in the States. I don't know why I said I grew up there. I'm still there. But it's one of those things. But yeah, I'm definitely a soccer footballer by nature, and then paintball. And the reason you wouldn't put those 2 together is playing soccer with a paintball mask on would be very, very troublesome.
I wouldn't play it. I'd just watch it.
Actually, it would give advantage. It could. No. Basically, they just blind the keeper.
Yeah.
Have you looked? Have you seen paintball? Most of the, if you've watched any of the speedball, which is the professional like tournament scene, a lot of them walk on with like a harness with at least 4 extra reloads of paintballs or 5 or 6. That would be one slow soccer game if those were the players on the field.
There'd be like a lot of flags and a lot of cursing.
I've actually had one of my former jobs. One of the guys actually did play paintball, and the counter was in the middle of the shop, and it was about 2.5 meters wide. And I was on the one side of the counter, and he was on the other side of the counter. And this fella's like, 6 feet, God knows what, 6'3", 6'4", and he's got really long arms. And he brought his paintball gun to work, and he basically stood at on that one side of the counter, and I had my back face to him. He pulled out his paintball gun, stretched out, and just shot me right in the back of the shoulder. My shoulder was black and blue for about 3 weeks.
Yep,
that's not good for.
So
I actually know a guy that he would do paintball shirt or topless, basically.
Yep.
And he would get so many welts, it was just ridiculous.
I've played with all various crews of paintball. Some are the people who don't play with the shirt, or they play in the what we call wife beater, like the white tank top.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things. I don't know how they do that because I've got long sleeves. I've got a proper jersey in theory that I wear to cover pretty much everything because you don't want to get hit bare skin. And it's one of those things that growing up we were messing about, and one of my buddies was super close. And for some reason he was like, "Yeah, you won't shoot me, you won't do it." And then I shot him, and he was super pissed. So he grabbed his gun and was running at me, and I made it around the house. But he ended up shooting me once. I never felt it. I had my wallet in my back pocket, and that's where he hit me.
Oh, you're lucky.
So I never felt it when he got super close and hit me.
Lucky.
Lucky.
It was one of those things. I've got plenty of paintball memories and stories. Wow. I got my entire group from work. There was a whole bunch of people from work, about 25 people or so, that I got out paintballing. About half of them actually ended up just buying stuff immediately, and we just went almost every week. It was awesome.
Cool.
Brilliant. Well, back in South Africa, where I came from, we had 1 or 2 weddings where the best man would arrange just before the wedding, the groom, to strip off just in his underwear, and the guys, about 10 or 15 guys, would line up along the side of a wall, and he'd have to run down the one side of the wall and back while they're shooting paintballs at him the whole time. Bang, 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 just to initiate him before the wedding. So, yeah, he got bruised a few times after that.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I'm going to go to the baseball back.
If any of your friends are watching this, you got something to do.
So, do you have a ritual for longer gaming sessions, and what are they?
No, there's no real ritual involved. I'm not really one of those people that have a set thing. Typically, though, so weekends when I get to game, I will wake up. I don't like to wake up before noon, but usually it's 9 or 10. And I come down, I grab my coffee, and I sit down. And then about 3 or 4, I'll end up eating. So I mean, I guess that could be considered a ritual, but ultimately, no, I don't really do anything for extended time as far as like just specifically for playing extended times, because I've clocked streams and stuff close to 12 hours, 13 hours of gaming, and I just go through it like normal.
So any food and drink,
anything like that.
Yeah, but any food and drink that you enjoy eating at the computer?
So if this was my brother, it'd be chips. He's always eating chips at the computer. You can hear it because he usually open mics it too. I like cheese and apples a lot as far as eating at the computer, and it's not because it's healthy so much as it just tastes good. And water. Typically, these days I'm drinking water or coffee.
Fair enough.
Good.
Good man.
So
The only important question.
the only important question to this whole entire interview: who is the VOT host with the most?
So I heard beforehand. I think I'm supposed to say Josh.
Yeah.
But we'll say lecture.
Yeah.
Well, one each. There we go.
So Fox have called that out.
That brings Jaron.
Hang on a minute. I smell something weird here and funny. Fox have called that out way before he said it. Have you been communicating in the back end with Mippins?
Me?
Yes.
I would never do such a thing.
She would
I
never
can't-
threaten their
I
well-being.
cannot believe that you are accusing me.
So Fox, do you have any questions for Mippins?
Well, if you're going to accuse me, I don't know.
Number one, why is your
But anyway, we did have two questions. One was from Piratus CND, just asking Mippins, being a long-time gamer as yourself, how do you feel about the new MMOs today and how they function? And how does Pantheon feel a more classic MMO genre for you?
So I think I've briefly skated around this. Ultimately, how do the new MMOs feel to me? Ultimately, if you want it summed up, blah. Like they aren't engaging enough. They last, and I usually play them just because some friend of mine's like, this is the best one ever. You've got to play it, and I play it for maybe a week, sometimes a little longer, and then I'm done. I think Destiny 2, which I don't know if you classify it as a current MMO or not. That's still, I guess, a little up for debate. I don't really classify it as an MMO. I think I lasted a total of 4 days playing that game. I got to max level, got decent gear score, and I think I raided loosely twice with some friends, and that was it. And that took me about 4 days. The one that's actually kind of cool, and I don't know where it classifies in the pool, is The Division. That one I go back to occasionally just because it's fun to play around with the mods and stuff on the guns, and it still doesn't really give me the feel because Division, the group size
feels very one-dimensional.
Yeah, it's
And
one-dimensional.
gameplay.
Group size tends to be minimal in most of the current MMOs, like everything that's releasing. It's one of those things that I don't feel connected to my group because you auto queue up for something, you do a run, and you don't ever see or hear from them again unless you get unlucky with your queuing, stuff like that. And they're just all not engaging enough, I guess, is for lack of better words. So to sum it up, they sound blat or feel blat to me. And then the second part of that question, which I completely forgot because I was talking, can someone refresh?
It was basically, do you want me to repeat the question?
Oh, it was the classic MMO. Why,
How Pantheon fills the classic MMO role,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
How does Pantheon feel a more classic MMO genre for you?
Yeah, so classically, and this goes back, if you don't count Ultima Online was a different thing entirely. But it's one of those things that the early MMOs, your groups mattered, your connections mattered, because if you wanted to get something done, you needed to know people because you could not solo content. So your community mattered, your network mattered, your name and person mattered. I mean, I remember times raiding in EverQuest where some guilds didn't want people to advance, so you told them the wrong strat, like rangers kite in opposite directions, so the mobs would kill the rangers and wipe the group, or shenanigans like that.
Right.
Next question.
Next question.
Next question is from Xmoko.
Stop sulking.
Pardon?
She's got trash.
Excuse me.
I'm gonna sit here and laugh.
You wait until this stream is over. Ooh, you're in so much trouble right now. So this question is from Xmoko, and he'd like to ask Mippin, What is one of your greatest achievements in MMOs, or one that sticks out that you love to talk about?
Oof. That is a loaded question. There's
Is it-
been so many MMOs.
Is this the point where we get to the 3-hour mark?
Yes, this is the 3-hour. We're gonna go on a 3-hour tour back in time. We're gonna go down memory lane here. If you need to use the restroom, now would be a good time to do that. No, I'm kidding.
Once upon a time, long, long ago.
Long time
A
ago.
galaxy far away.
So I know I've mentioned this earlier in the stream, but one of the best things were, so I played a Psionicist in Vanguard, and my brother played a Disciple. We got into this guild that was doing raids at that point in time because we were max level, ready to go, and it's more a string of raids rather than a specific time. But I mentioned the Disciple tank where we finished off the mob, and there were like 5 of us left from whatever the 20 some that we started with, because it was my brother on his Disciple hitting his invuln cooldown and proceeding to tank the mob till we killed it, because it was at like 3% when people started wiping or somebody did something stupid. Who knows? That part's blurry, but we made it. There was literally every raid we'd go to, we were either the backup of something or not healing the appropriate group, or if it was my brother. But being the Psionicist, there were a couple other Psionicists, and we joined late, so we were back in line. But literally every time we got in the raid and we got in the groups, and my brother was like healing the main tanks or a primary group, and I was actually primary CC and doing the Psionicist stuff correctly, we would beat them up. And then they would swap things around the next day when we were supposed to come back, and we were on the bench. We would just watch them fail over and over and over again. And then it would be the next day, and like the person who set up the raid the previous day wasn't there, so they'd switch things around. We'd be in again, kill the mob first try, no problem. That's gonna be one of my favorite things, because we were late to the party, so you guys get second tier like you're second on the list as far as like priority and everything, and then we just watched them fail, and we were bored. The chat between us was amazing. And
Nice.
then,
Awesome.
and then it proceeded to be they'd swap us in, we'd kill the mob, and then back again to some of the less optimal setups or people who weren't paying attention enough. I don't know what was going on.
Mm-hmm. I know there was another question over there. That wasn't actually picked up, but it was someone asking, why are they so awesome? And I do have an answer for this.
You took my question.
Yeah, you said 2 questions, so. But do you know why that person is so awesome? Because they're watching the Voices of Terminus show. Plain and simple.
Well, I guess I won't ask that question then.
Yeah! Well, you said 2 questions, and that would have been technically 3. So I figured you might have missed it or just counted it because it wasn't really a serious question.
See, Shy, it's not me, it's Lex. Lex is driving us.
Hey, I tried to make her life a little easier. What have you done to help Froggy lately?
Exactly. That's right. It's all about the frog. It's all about the frog.
I put it out.
That's when you say that's why you're the host with the most. You're supposed to
That's
throw that
right.
in there.
That's right.
I know. I feel very left out that my name isn't even asked. I mean, just...
Yeah, I know. You get quite a few votes already.
Well, no, it's got to be a contest, you know.
Exactly. Otherwise, this
Oh,
is non-combatant. Otherwise, there's no point in us asking that question. Then, is it? If you're in there,
Right.
at least with Josh in the mix, we stand a chance.
And Dayhawk, I am not going to ask that.
Wait.
I am not asking that question, Dayhawk.
That's not a question.
Okay.
It's a statement.
Yeah, it's a statement, Dayhawk, but I would see someone about it.
Just keep licking it. You'll be fine.
Any further questions come in?
No, just Dayhawks that I'm refusing to say. So.
Yes. Okay. So, what would your final words be for VR? If they were listening, what would you tell them?
So if they were listening, I would say keep up the hard work, wait, and release the game when it's ready to be released. Don't do it early. We saw what happened with Vanguard, and that wasn't their fault, I know. But that would be my number one thing, and keep up the good work. I'm very excited about the game.
Nice. So that brings us to the end of the interview, everybody. We hope you enjoyed the show today. Don't forget, we're streaming on Fridays, 6 p.m. Not Thursdays anymore. We've moved to a Friday to accommodate a later start time so we can reach more of you guys out there. And if anybody else in chat wants to come on and do an interview with us, reach out to us, or you want to come and discuss other topics, please reach out to us either through our Twitter channel or our Discord directly. You're more than welcome to come on. Next Friday's show, see, I've still got to get used to it myself. Next Friday's show, we'll be talking about an idea sprung by Sacred, who's also one of the community, has been on our show quite a few times already. We'll be talking about guild currency, an idea he sparked, and we're going to go and look at that a bit more further and see what we can figure out and find out about it and theory craft on. So join us next Friday for that, and hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks we'll have a show layout for you guys so you can see in advance where we're heading and what we're going to be showing off or talking about in due time. So with that, Mippins, thanks for joining us. We had a blast. Lex, thanks for being there. Josh, you know.
I was going to say,
Oh well. And Shy?
Yes.
We'll talk offline, all right?
Oh, we're gonna talk. All right. We're
So-
definitely going to talk.
they're gonna talk.
So I think
They're gonna meet at the flagpole.
Lex, I think this is the time you need to put pants on now. So with that, guys, we'll see you all next Friday, and have a good one. Have a great weekend.
Be safe,
Keep those
everybody.
pants off, Lexer.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks for
Enjoy.
having me. Take care, guys.
Have a great weekend, everyone.